All right, welcome to Trapped Emotions Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew.
I'm your other host, Tyler.
And we're here to talk about emotions, trapped emotions that men don't always talk about. Well, I think we're going to get into some things that, we felt personally, and I'm sure a lot of other men, and not just men, but, everybody's felt out there that we don't always talk about. In our journey, we've come to realize how important it is to talk about these things and to vocalize them and just get them off our chest. So that's what we're going to do. And, I hope you're ready for it because we are.
So, I think the important thing is to understand how we got here, right? So we kind of got here from myself kind of going through an emotional breakdown, and me and Andrew kind of got on the same page. We got to talking, and boom, here we are with you guys. So we've gone back and forth on different content that we wanted to put out and how we wanted to put this out. And I think what we're going to do is start this off with why we got here, right? So I'm going to go ahead and start with this unmanageability of emotions, right? So we're going to break this down. And this is all on my Facebook thing. If you want to see it, you can read along with us. But in a sense, let me break this down, right? So it kind of goes like this. So this is where it all started from. I wrote this publicly and tried to become more vulnerable because I struggle with vulnerability, right? So what I wrote was part 1 of 7, right? So we're going to break down all 7 throughout this process. That's kind of where we're going to go, is break down the emotional connection of where we were during this time. So part 1 was the unmanageability of emotions, right? So it is only when I feel empty and it's gnawing at the corners of my mind that I ask for mercy. From the self-sabotage, I am falling spiritually, mentally, and out of control. This is not what was planned. The spirits I feel are at the window, gathering as I hear demons scream. I am sick and tired of this bullshit. There are millions of candles burning for a help that never came. There is a lover in this story, but the story is a paradox for suffering. I feel like I'm in a cage, and you can't keep a phoenix in a bird cage. So poof, I disappear, and I blow out the millions of candles that burn for that fucking help that never came. I burn a relationship to the ground just to be alone. Feeling like the son of Billie Jean, I feel I should stay with a broken heart. I can't even blame you. I will play career suicide just for eye rolls and fun. I let life blow up and create chaos. I sit in a circle and let the world burn around me. Laughing while crying, I find beauty in the pain and misery. Let's burn this bitch down, self-sabotage just to lose everything out of boredom or maybe survivor's guilt. I thought I sewed the wounds up, but they just bled through. So they bleed onto all the people in my life, emotionally and mentally. I am hurting. In return, I hurt people close to me. Hurt people hurt people. That little voice whispers inside, kill them all because they don't appreciate you. This is what mental health looks like in the feeling and feels like before. And then I wrote about, before any phone messages or text messages and stuff, it's, I'm not the only person who thinks fucked up. We all do, and we can all heal. But we must be willing to explore the dark places in our mind in order to heal. We must be willing to work on ourselves in order to properly heal. This means getting uncomfortable and not being afraid to say what is in our head, and not being afraid to say, bro, I'm dying on the inside, and find the root cause as to why we self-sabotage and why we do these things that harm us. And, and I'll finish this off with, I bet you feel like the whole world is hating on you. Well, it sounds like the whole world is waiting on you. I can't go on this way, and something needs to change. Actually, it comes from Young Jeezy, to be honest with you. Right? But, that's part 1, right?
And, I remember when you came to me and started talking about this, and the crazy part is that I was going through something similar. I was struggling with my emotions and my emotional state at that point, and, just had some things that I didn't really talk about. And then, Tyler opened up to me, and in turn, I was able to open up with him because I felt comfortable, as another man, hearing another man's story and how he struggles with his emotions. I let everything out, and, we talked, and like we really got deep into what we were feeling, not just the situations that happened in our life, but how they made us feel. And that was all part of the healing process. And it was so important to speak about what was really going on inside my head. And, when Tyler opened up, I remember just feeling like, wow, that we should talk about this more. We should share this with other men and let them know that it's okay. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to feel these feelings. And it's okay to talk about it, because, these trapped emotions only make things worse. And, we get to the point where we're having these daily conversations for an hour or two, while we're going through this. And it's just like so awakening and enlightening. Like, this is helping, this is really making us realize that these things that we go through are normal and it's okay to talk about them. And I remember when you were really feeling that, not only did I feel my own emotion, but I could feel your emotion, and it was like a moment where the realization of how I'm not the only sensitive man out there,
Well, I think what's important is like how we got there, right? Is because like at the end of the day, like I started going through this emotional problems, like in my head, like I started really struggling because it felt like, man, it just felt like the whole weight of the world was on me, and it felt like I couldn't feel this pain, right? And at the same time, I feel addicted to the pain, right? And like I talked in there about the self-sabotage, right? So a lot of that is like, because at the time, like I was in a relationship, and like I was going, I go to work, like I'm doing all these things that like I'm supposed to be doing, right? But at the same token, like I felt like it was that's a fire alarm going off, by the way, in case anybody's wondering.
6 o'clock right
Really
now.
threw me off guard for a minute, right? But anyway,
It's all right.
We threw that in there for real.
yeah, right. Anyway, so
Sirens
like,
going on. Getting deep.
so like I had started going with the self-sabotage and stuff because like I was just unhappy, right? Like I was unhappy with everything that was going on, and like I kept trying to talk about it, and I felt like I couldn't talk about it, and I felt like the weight of the world is just sitting on me, and like like I grew up Catholic, right? And don't hold that against me. But I grew up Catholic, so like I remembered like like my grandma and everybody, they used to burn candles at the church, right? And I felt like all my life, like people have been burning these candles for me, and like I just felt abandoned. I felt like where the fuck's the help? You know what I mean? Where's this God that you call upon? Because like I'm struggling, I'm in this emotional wreck right now, and like it was like I start isolating, right? So like I start pushing friends away. I start pushing, I got out of that relationship. Like I just started pushing everybody away because I'm like, I can't mentally take care of myself right now. And like, and I remember you calling it. You actually didn't call until part 2, right? But you had called and was like, bro, like I feel this. I'm going through the same shit, right? And that's what made me feel like, damn, I'm not alone. And like, crazy me. And like, this is kind of what everybody expects of me anyway, is like I just throw shit out there, right? I wear my emotions on my sleeve anyway. And like when I had put that on Facebook, because I did it publicly, and like when I had started throwing that shit out there, just seeing people's response, like, oh my God, I'm going through it too, made me realize like I gotta go deeper. It's like I'm not alone. And like let me go deeper because, 17 years of build up, we go through recovery process, because as most people know, like I'm a recovering addict, but 17 years of this shit. So like I got sober in like 2006. So I'm going through this shit, and like I still have all this build up stuff, because like you never fully work on it because like I mask it, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I learned was I masked it with, well, I'm gonna go to college, right? So like I went to school and I'm like, now look at me now, right? And like I get this degree and it's like, cool, like I got a master's now, like I know what I'm doing, and it was like, oh well, that's just a front. Like all that piece of paper means is I can read a book and tell it back to you. I know how to use Google, right? Well, it didn't teach me, like I was talking with Justin, like they didn't teach me how to deal with emotions. It taught me how to recognize them, not deal with them, and not express them.
And I like what you said about, the self-sabotage, because it takes me back to, how I was self-sabotaging myself for years and didn't even understand it, because it was me not dealing with the real emotions I was feeling. I just kept ignoring it because, oh no, that's just normal. This is normal, what people go through. I'll eventually get over it and be able to, have a decent way of handling certain situations and everything. And, like Tyler, of course, many of I'm also in recovery and, working to better myself in all other aspects of my life has been great. But I ignored so many things because I didn't think that they were really affecting me as much as they were. The fact that it took me so long to realize that I had problems managing relationships, not just relationships romantically, but relationships with friends and people, because I felt that it was easier to push them away before they got to know what was really going on. And I think that that's how I was self-sabotaging myself without really cognizantly realizing what I was doing. It was just so much easier when things got tough to push people away. Like, no, like let's just, it's too much, and so I would push people away and I was self-sabotaging. It was so much easier to be alone than to share what was going on with other people close to me. And I think by me thinking that it would just fix itself in the future, that really off put, the healing process. And, in the beginning when we started talking, one of the things I realized is that just like with other aspects of my life, I'm not going to heal unless I talk about it, unless I vocalize what's going on, and talk to another person or just, share with whoever, share with you guys. It is very important. And the self-sabotaging has been something that I've been doing without even realizing it, and you said that, and it just, it really made me think, like, what am I doing?
You know what I think, like, the crazy thing is that I was thinking is like, so like as I was writing this and stuff, like one of the things that I had said was like, I will burn everything to the ground, right? Just for fun, right? And I think it's because like at the end of the day, like I feel addicted to that pain because like I feel that survivor's guilt, right? And we're gonna talk more about that later in the next couple episodes, but because I go deeper into that, but like I really felt that survivor's guilt, and I think what really hemmed me up the most was the fact of the recovery aspect, right? Is because like with what I do for a profession and what I do, in normal life and like recovery and like just people and stuff, it's hard, man. Like when you want to, like, you know what I mean? Like I relive constant trauma every day with dealing with new people and like trying to help them through their problems. But on top of that, like it's hard when you're struggling and you want to say you're struggling and people look at you like, well, you're not supposed to struggle. Like you can't struggle. Why are you struggling? Like you can't mentally be in this place because you become, like I have like people would say to me like, well, you have a degree in this. Like, don't you know the problem? Well, yeah, I understand the problem, but it doesn't mean that I don't feel it. You know what I mean? And like, and then I would have people talk, like I would try talking to people and people would laugh, right? They would kind of be like, oh, ha, 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 ha. I'm like, I'm not joking. like I'm really mentally struggling, right? And like, because I felt like I still do feel like I'm trapped in a cage, right? And like that's why like I had talked about like a phoenix in a bird cage, right? Because everybody would always make those comparisons to us, where the phoenixes that rise out of the ashes, because like I don't do heroin anymore, right? But okay, cool. Like I'm not doing that, and like I'm good, but at the same time, like I'm struggling, and like it feels like they put us in a cage because it's like, well, you've got to a certain place now in life, and like you're supposed to be okay. And it's like, no, man, like I still struggle with these daily emotions, and like I still, and like especially when I started writing that, because that was what, like 2 months,
Mm-hmm.
2 3 months ago, and like 2 3 months ago was the worst, and like I'm still not emotionally okay. Like I'm still a train wreck. Like I mean, you know that from talking to me every day. I'm still a train wreck, right? And like I still self-sabotage, right? And like you had mentioned about relationships, I am terrible at relationships, right? Because sometimes I'm toxic. I'm the toxic one, right? Like I can admit that. Like there's times I've been in a relationship where they're not toxic. I am. But it's easier to blame them, right? And we all do that. Like, you know, how many times have we been in relationships, you and I both, where we've sat down and been like, and that's something we uncovered in our phone call, right? Where we were talking like, yo, this girl, da 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 da, and she was doing this and acting like this, and I wanted to be like this, and we're like, whoa, slow down. Shit, I'm the problem. I'm trying to control this situation, or I'm trying to do these things because like I feel like I'm trapped in a bubble, right? So like yeah, like I find it easier to isolate, right? I would rather be alone because if I'm alone, I only have to deal with me and my cat, right? And
Pickles.
yeah, Pickles ain't gonna yell at me, right? Well, he does. He yells at me for some treats, but you know what I mean? Like Pickles ain't gonna yell at me that much, and like you know what I mean? And like he's easy to take care of, so like it's easier for me to just be content with sitting at home and try, you know. And I always joke about going with the flow, right? It's a fucking lie, right? That's a goddamn lie. Like at the end of the day, like I struggle mentally a lot because like I'm not always okay. And like as we've discovered going through our phone conversations, like damn, how many masks do I wear? You know what I mean? Like I wear a lot of masks. You know what I mean?
Definitely, and that just really had me thinking about the things that I go through with that we've talked about, it's similar to wearing a mask, but it's like trying to be someone stronger than who I really am on the inside. As
Ooh, yeah.
as us men, we're taught at a young age to portray this
Men don't cry.
this figure of strength and someone that's unshakable, someone that handles his own, doesn't talk to anyone about it. And the thing is like, for so many years, I've always said, I don't need anyone. I do everything on my own. I'm a single dad. I take care of my daughter. I work a job. I cook. I clean. I do laundry. I do everything that, a person can do. Like, what do I need a woman for? Or what do I need other people in my life? And I think that was really a mask that I was wearing because I didn't want to show people that I want to be comforted, that I want to be talked to, like asked, how's your day going? Like, I want someone to be there. But as a man, I didn't want to show that vulnerability, because that made you weak, but deep down, all those years, in those failed relationships, that's what I wanted. I wanted someone to care for me. I wanted someone to love me. I wanted someone to be there for me and my daughter. And I was just you know, too egotistical to admit it. And I think that with all this, I've really been uncovering these things about myself, and it's opened me up to realize that it's okay as a man to feel those things. It's okay as a man to want those things. We want to be comforted. We want to be talked to. We want to be cuddled with. Us men love that. And we want someone that's gonna give that to us. We want someone that's not afraid to do that. And it's something that's really been showing itself to me lately. Thank God. And I'm getting that now, and I'm realizing like how much I missed this, and how the old-hearted me was foolish for ignoring this for all these years, because I do need people. I need people in my life, not just, a female, but I need friends, and friends is something that's a whole nother subject we can get into, just like Tyler said. I also have the ability to push people away that aren't fitting into my life, and I don't really think about it. I've been doing it since I was a kid. I've always had a specific friend that I hung out with all the time for a month, a year or so, a few months. It doesn't matter. And then all of a sudden, like, I'm not feeling that connection. I'm not vibing with this friend or whatever. So next thing I know, I'm hanging out with a new friend, spending all my time with them, and not really realizing how the other friends are receiving that, and not really caring, because I was very selfish about my emotions. And that's one thing I realized in this, is how selfish I've been with my emotions. If you're not fitting into my life, like, I'm just piecing, I'm just gone. And it's something that, with me realizing this, I see how far back that goes, and it's just something that I'm really working on today. And I'm wanting to build these more solid friendships, and with people I care about, and work on relationships that I'd normally just forget about and move away from.
I'm the opposite. I'm the opposite, right? Like, my biggest issue, like everything that you're describing there, like, I have found that in a relationship with like a woman, right? And like, it's crazy because like I was in a relationship where, you're talking about like getting the comfort and all that shit. Like, I had that, right? But like, there were other things in that relationship that I wasn't okay with, right? Like, I had boundaries in there that were being crossed all the time. And like, I just felt like I wasn't being heard. And like, for me, it was like, that was my breaking point, was, every day I talk to people about setting boundaries and maintaining boundaries, right? It's what I talk to people about all the time. Right. And like, it occurred to me, like, I'm like,
you wasn't doing it.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm not fucking doing it, right? It's like, I'm telling all these, I'm showing people, I'm talking to them, I'm having them do writing exercises. Like, I'm doing all this shit with these people, but I'm not doing with this, right? And I always pride myself with people. Like, I'll tell them, like, I'm never going to ask you to do something I want to do myself, right? But meanwhile, when it comes to the boundaries, I'm not really doing it in relationships with an intimate relationship, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody else in life I'm doing, right? It's just that intimate relationship. So for me, I was like, man, I'm not feeling hurt. This shit's not changing, and like, I just can't do this because I'm about to have an emotional breakdown and have to check into behavioral health unit, right? Sign myself in. So I was like, I gotta leave this. And like, in the same process of that, I also learned, right? Like, you were talking about like friendships. Like, I'm a terrible friend, right? Like, I really am. Like, at the end of the day, like, the only people I've ever been able to maintain and retain a friendship with is like you, obviously, Terry, who's now gone, right? Leland, who's now gone, right? Shane, who's in prison, right? And like, I can say their names because I got permission, right? And that was it, right? And like, so like, I hold on to a lot, and Dorian, right? May he rest in peace. And like, all these people are gone, and like, they're dead, and like, that bothers me. And like, I've always had that survivor's guilt, and like, I hold on to it. And like, in a sense, like, I've never dealt with that grief and loss, right? So like, I struggle with new friends because of all the rejection. And we're going to get deeper in these episodes where we talk about like childhood trauma, where like, I'm, about the rejection, the abandonment, the physical abuse, the mental abuse, the emotional abuse, all that shit. And like, man, that really plays into even our friendships, because like, I'm automatically assuming everybody's leaving, right? Like, you're gonna leave, so I know you're gonna leave, so I'm gonna push you out of the way, but I don't want you to leave because like, I want you to stay. Oh, look, you're leaving. Like, I knew you were gonna leave, right? And like, it's just that emotional roller coaster all the time. And like, I realized, like, dude, I am a terrible friend to people, because like, even with you, like, how many times do I just disappear? Mm-hmm. Right? Like, I will disappear and then reappear like months down the road, like, hey, what's up? Let's go hang out. And then I get mad because I'm like, well, man, they don't want to hang out now. Well, no shit that nobody wants to hang out. I ain't talked to you in 6 months, right?
Yeah.
So, I've realized, like, not even that, like, my friendships have all been really centered around selfish behaviors. It's all been centered around, like, what are you doing for me, right? And then at the same token, like, I look at it like, well, I'm trying to help them, and like I'm doing these things to help them, so like that's how I justify it in my mind, right? And like that's not okay, you know what I mean? And like I really struggle with that, so like that's what I'm trying to do now is like I'm trying to be more consistent with people, is like I need people, right? And like and somehow or another, like I'm a very outgoing person, but I became extremely introverted. So like I'm trying to like be more consistent. I'm trying to be more like not turn into a ghost and actually hang out with people and do things and like get out there, because like it's easy for me to like, and like we've talked about this, where I'll get in a relationship with a girl, shut everybody else off,
Gone. He's gone. You do it, man.
and stay in just in that relationship with that girl, and like no wonder it fails, right? Because I make that my source of happiness. And like even though I pretend like I don't, I do, right? And like that's the codependency in me, right?
And that's you like focusing. Like I see when you do it, like you focus all your energy into this relationship because like that's something that you can control. And you can control, the things that are in your household. And if you can control that relationship,
I think I can.
Yeah, you think you can. And like when we can control those things that are around us, it makes us feel a lot more comfortable. Like, okay, I can control what this person knows about me, how they feel about me, as long as I can handle this right, and it's a lot easier to control one situation with one person and try to control this and then have all these other relationships going on, outside of our household. And I think like when we get to the point where we focus so much energy on our relationship, number one, not only does it possibly not help the relationship, but it takes the focus away from ourselves. And I noticed that because I've been there too in the past where I've focused a lot of energy on someone else, and a couple times that person probably wasn't in the right state of mind to be in a relationship with me for where I was heading, where I was trying to go. And I ended up putting my life on hold to focus on that relationship and help that other person and make them better, hopefully. And, I found that when I'm focusing too much on a certain relationship with someone instead of focusing on myself, like I'm not only hurting my relationship, but I'm not dealing with my emotions and the things that I need to deal with to make myself better,
Well, I think, and that's why like one of the things I had said, when I'm looking at this, I had said like, kill them all, they don't appreciate you, right? Like I always hear that little voice in my head that tells me like these people don't appreciate you, right? Like, like at work, right? Like I go to work and like I do a lot, you know what I mean? And like I try to go above and beyond at work because like I believe in my work, and like it's my heart and soul, right? Like we all know that. And like I take a lot of pride in that. And at the same time, like I always feel like, man, these people around me don't appreciate, right? And then I go into friendships and I'll get a phone call. Hey Tyler, you got a truck, piece of shit truck, but it's a truck, right? Will you give me a hand? Like, I need to do this and that. I'm like, yeah, no problem. And then I'm like, damn, like, you don't appreciate me when, like, I try calling you for help and, like, you don't appreciate me. And then, like, family, right? Like, like, that's a touchy subject, right? But, like, I feel like they don't appreciate me. I feel like, I get in these relationships, right? And I'm like, damn, like these people don't appreciate me. Even when you tell me you appreciate me, right? I'm always in my mind justifying you're not appreciating me. And the reason for that, like I've come to realize after doing some of this stuff, is like it's because I'm setting, and like it's crazy because like I always tell people to not do this, right? But I set these expectations that are unrealistic on people, right? And then I get mad because you're not living up to my unrealistic expectation. And I'm like, well, you don't appreciate me because if you did, I wouldn't have to tell you to do this, right? I wouldn't have to tell you that like I would like this, right? I wouldn't have to tell you that like, you know, um, damn, maybe I want a birthday, which we're gonna get into that later because that goes into childhood. But um, you know what I mean? Where I'm sitting there like I'm gonna burn this shit to the ground, right? And like, and at the same time, like that's why I say like I'll play career suicide, right? Because like everybody knows, like if you come into like you're one of my clients, like I will advocate to the death, right? And like you know that because you've seen me like where I'll argue with whoever, whenever. I don't care what your position is, even if it means that I'm gonna lose my job or whatever. I don't care, right? Because like I always try that codependency, right? I'm trying to help other people and sacrifice myself. And like at the same time, I think it's because I know in my head I've done a lot of wrongs. I try to rewrite those wrongs by trying to do good things. So I think by advocating, I'm doing good things and I'm rewriting wrongs of the past. And like that's bullshit, right? But at the same time, like I have this passion, and especially for like drug addicts, alcoholics, you know, children in the system, right? Things like that is like I will, I will, you know, go to war for it and not care about myself. So like in turn, I take all that trauma stuff and I sacrifice it. You know what I mean? And like, man, that's unhealthy. And that's what creates a lot of these unhealthy relationships for me because I do that, and I do that even in relationships where like it hurts the relationship, you know, like when I worked with children, right? Remember that, and you'll remember this because you were there for all this. It's like my dad were doing recording, right? He's a nut, but nah, like remember, like I was, because I went into a dark place when I worked with the children at CYS, right? Like I was working there, and like I felt like I needed to like protect people. I don't know what was going on in my mind. I just know I went to a dark place, right? And like I come home, and like I wasn't talking to the girl I was with, like dealing with sex abuse cases, right? So like I didn't want to, I don't want you to touch me, right? And like that's something that we don't talk about as men is like, man, like some of this shit bothered me to the point like I'd come home, be like, don't touch me. I don't want to have sex with you. I sure in hell don't want to hug you or kiss you because like I'm dealing with some shit and like I don't want that intimacy, right? And like I'm dealing with this stuff, and like eventually the girl ended up cheating on me, and like we broke up and she left and whatever, and like that affected me. But like I get it, right? Like she did that because, bro, like I neglected her completely, right? I was an asshole, just completely neglected, and I never communicated. I never explained why, right? Feeling the way we're feeling and not explaining why, right? So like that's the other side of this is like we feel these things, and sometimes I don't explain why I feel these things, and like in turn that affects all these relationships.
No, I like how you brought that up about like going through those emotions and not talking about them with your partner. Because I know I've been there. It definitely wasn't the same situation that you were in, but like when you have a partner and then you feel the vibe is off, and it's a lot of the time I realized it was because I was struggling communicating what I was feeling. We don't always want to be the one to say, hey, as men, hey, this is how I'm feeling in our relationship.
And women.
Yeah.
Because women are the same way.
Yeah. No, I agree. But, like it's going back to where I said as men, how, we're taught to not show our emotion and not talk about these things. But there's plenty of, times in past relationships where I could have communicated how I was feeling, and instead I just kind of sat back and hoped that things would change because I didn't want to deal with that. I didn't want to vocalize what I was going through emotionally because I didn't want my partner to feel to see me as being vulnerable, because in a man's eyes that shows weakness. And I didn't want to show that. So in turn, I ended up getting to a point in certain relationships where I would just kind of slowly drift away so I could get to a point where I could cut it off because I wasn't feeling what I needed out of that situation without even expressing or communicating what was really going on inside my head. And, looking back, a lot of it was issues that I had from, past traumas as a kid. And, not wanting to communicate things because I remember when I was younger, I would communicate certain things that I was going through with friends or whoever, and I would just get shut down. Like, oh, really, that's not something that serious, and I remember like thinking that, and so as a child, I was so hesitant on opening up to other people, especially, people close to me, friendships and everything, because I didn't want to be looked at a certain type of way. And I didn't want people to see me as in a way that would push them away from me. So I was very closed off to talking about things, and I think that's why I would cut so many people off when it got to that point where I wasn't feeling that connection with them anymore. And as a kid, all I wanted to do was fit in. I just wanted you to like me. I didn't care how you liked me. And if I thought that by me talking about something that I was going through was going to push you away, I wouldn't talk about it. You know? Which is why I would keep recycling these friendships over and over and over again. And I even say it, when I give a lead, I was a chameleon. I would be whoever you wanted me to be so that we could be friends. I hung out with every group in high school, every single one. I fit in there, and I talked to everyone. I was very outgoing and open, but none of those people in those groups really knew who I was. I didn't even know who I was because I would change so much to fit in with the people around me because I didn't really want them to know how I was feeling or what I was going through. And as an adult who still struggled with that, once I began to, get sober and work on myself, I realized how big of an issue that was and how much I needed to change and how I needed to open up about those things and just be me. Like I've realized that I'm not the same person that I was 10 years ago. I realized that 10 years ago I didn't even know who I was. And, as time goes by, I get more comfortable with who I am and people knowing who I am. And I think that this podcast is a culmination of that on my side, at least, where I'm just ready to be open. How you think about what I say or who I am is really none of my business. And that's just where I'm at with that.
Yeah. How are you gonna steal my tagline?
Right. I've been saying it for years.
No, like I feel that, right? And like, but I feel for me like not communicating this, I become emotionally numb, right? To the point where I no longer know the man in the mirror because like how, and we've been talking for so long all throughout the years. I straight become so emotionally numb I no longer care, right? And like I do care, but like I don't, right? And like it's because I become so emotionally numb and I look in the mirror and like I don't know who that person is. And like, I hear those little voices in the head, right? And that's a metaphor, right? I don't really hear voices in my head, but like, you know what I mean? But I hear these voices in my head that are like, bro, you're worthless. You know what I mean? Like, and I hear this like, oh, you're worthless. Like, you don't care. You're emotionally numb. You've checked out. And like, in a sense, what brought me into writing this stuff, and like, I did check out. Like, I emotionally checked out and emotionally became so numb. And like, just recently, like within the past like 3 days, recently, I feel a flame relit inside, and like it's because I went to that conference thing, and we'll talk about that later down the road. But like I had a situation occur that like it was deep for me and very emotional, and like I felt that fire relit, because like when we're talking about being kids and shit, like But I spent most of my time in juvie, right? Like we know that. And like when I was in Vision Quest, like I couldn't talk about emotions, right? Talk about emotions, holy hell. I drop a pencil on the floor and they're jamming my head through a wall. Right? I've been thrown like I remember I just didn't want to, like I'm a kid, right? I just didn't want to clean a bathroom one time. I was like, man, I'm not cleaning the bathroom. I'm not a janitor. Worst thing I could have said, right? I ended up drill instructor threw me through the wall, right? Literally, I was laying in the wall, right? Because like grown ass men beating up kids, right? Like and like and you don't think about that. I've never thought about that until this, right? Where it was like, damn, like as a teenager, even because like I was there from like 14 to 18, like as I was up there, like I'm constantly, damn near every day, I'm getting beat up by a grown ass adult, and like I never thought about that. And like even as a child, when I was a kid, and like my uncle, and like me and him have a great relationship, right? Like I don't want to knock him because I'm sure he's gonna watch this, and I love my uncle more than anybody, like more than anybody today. Like him and I are amazing. Like we got a great relationship, and like I'll probably call him when I leave. But like he went through his own problem as a kid, right? Because like he was a kid too when I was a kid, right? Because my mom had me when she was 17. So my uncle was real young. We're not far in age, and like what I mean? Like I remember just being upset about something, like like this and that, and then like he would beat the piss out, right? And like I'd call my aunt while she was in Pittsburgh, like, come get me. And my aunt would be like, get him on the phone. And like, my aunt's always been my saving grace. She's always been there for me. But you know what I mean? Like it was crazy because we couldn't communicate, right? So like lower levels are where we sit at, right? So in a sense, the the kettle calling the pot black, right? Pot calling the kettle black, however you want to word that, right? I think that's the episode.
Yeah, and so you got episode 2.
And
So episode 2,
it's lower levels. That's why I left off with saying.
Yeah, so we're gonna delve into that a little bit more. So come back. Thank you, Trapped Emotions Podcast.
Out correctly.
All right, yeah. So Justin, come here. So real quick on camera, because this is the first episode, I want everybody to see Justin. Justin here, this is my guy, right?
He'll sit on a pyramid.
I've been known Justin since he was a little kid, wasn't allowed out of the yard. He hates when I mention that. His mom wouldn't let him out of the yard when he was a little kid.
Gangster, man.
Right? But Justin's our production team, right? So this is the whole team of Trapped Emotions right here, the three of us. Justin is our everything, right? So he does the setup, he does the video, he does the audio. He's even doing directing. So what you can't see is him back there kind of pointing to things and like doing stuff. So Justin is our brains behind all this. And like, he kind of is our operational person here. So I just wanted to put him on camera real quick because this is the first episode and I want people to see him. Because I'm very proud of Justin from where he came at, because like I know he don't like me to talk about. Well, I'm gonna talk about this anyway.
Go ahead.
I can, but like Justin at one point in time was a client of mine, right? And like,
You're allowed to say that?
I can because I have Justin's permission.
Yeah,
right? I got Justin's permission, right? So. Justin, it's been cool for me because I've got to watch Justin as a little kid when we was kids, right? And watch him come up. And like it's really cool for me to see his growth. And like I'm so happy that he's a part of this project with us. And like I just want to big him up real quick so y'all can see Justin. He's come a long way from when he was nodding out at the gas station looking for a piece of chicken.
So like right now, you've seen us just scratch the surface on so many issues that we're going to talk about here. This is just our entry level episode where we want you guys to just kind of get an idea of some things
Yeah.
we went through. You know, we're going to get into certain topics and subjects that, you know, we really think that y'all will appreciate. And this is three men here getting together and speaking about what's going on in our heads.
Amen.
And there's a lot of healing going on here. And we hope that y'all can heal with us. Trapped Emotions Podcast.
So, like they always say, like it, subscribe it, send it,
And
right?
share with everybody.
It, like it, whatever they say.
Yeah,
Man.
whatever.
Hit the bell, hit the notification.
You know
the drill. They say it on every damn show. So, like, do that. We hope that you support us, man. We love you. We appreciate the fact. I appreciate more than anything that people actually give a fuck about what we have to say. Right? Like, that blows my mind that people actually want to hear this shit. We're gonna do our best, man. And we are gonna take you through these 1 through 7. Check it out, man. You can read it if you want to read along with it. I posted it on Facebook, so if you got me on Facebook, do that. If you don't, just add me. I'll add you so you can read along with it. And like, Andrew will post the 1 through 7 on his page too, and then that way you guys can read along with it and like kind of feel where we're at. And we hope that you grow with us. You know, the whole point of this, heal with us. Love you.
Heal with us. Woo! See you next time.
Amen.
Amen.
Let's do that over, man. I don't like it.